welcome. This is Kevin, also known as AWOL. And today, this is all about making the second ornament. And I have it right here in my hands, in case you're wondering what I'm looking down at. So yeah, I think I discovered a few things along the way with this. So I think I mentioned before that the starting of this is a little bit easier if you go ahead and you start out with a regular kind of triangular thing like you would with a bracelet, which oddly enough, I do have an example. Well, this is a double, but the regular triangular start kind of works a little bit easier. Although the pattern that we chose for this made it a little bit weird because it's two colors, it was a little bit hard to see kind of where it was starting from. And then the way that the colors kind of went through it, you'll see like I'm starting to work on the left to kind of make up for the way that it starts, which is, again, it's the pattern's fault. That's what made this a little bit harder to kind of get it going. But once I got it going, that was sort of okay. The pattern actually works really, really well for this. In fact, I really like the way that turned out. Especially, yeah, during the pattern making, I was really undecisive about the greens connecting. I don't know if you'll be able to see that. Not really. The lighting is bad, but that made it, I think, really kind of pop off really nicely as well. So yeah, I didn't record all of the making of this. This would have been several hours of actual working this pattern. So I only did parts where I thought would kind of tell the story of making this. So this is the actual me starting it. Underneath the clip is a very loose knot of all of the strands. It's 12 strings coming down, and because I double, that means there's 24 strands of embroidery floss coming down. So that's for me, I cut it into thirds. So that means there was 4 skeins of each color. For the most part, the lengths of the string worked out pretty good. The first half, I was actually thinking, wow, maybe I didn't need it to be as long. But when I turned it around and went the other way, maybe that extra little piece there added to it or something. But I noticed that some of the strings were a little bit more threatening and felt a little bit more like it'd be a problem, which leads me to wonder if we tried to scale this up, if we went from 12 strings to say 16 strings, could that pose more of a problem for doing it really long? And if so, how to go about kind of correcting for that? Because yes, you can add string, but since we started in the middle, if you had to add string, you'll have to probably do that on both sides, which I don't think is necessarily that great of an idea per se. So just kind of a heads up thing here. By doing it where it's all a solid piece or whatever, it allows you to have the seams opened up in a way that the other one didn't. And it also, and you'll kind of see further on down the road when I put it together, there is an actual possibility of something else that could be made by, basically you would make 2 of these. Okay. When you attach one side, the other side sort of is sticking out. There's 3 of them, right? So it's sort of sticking out like this. So if you made 2, you could put them together and you would get a sort of a bell shape and then a bell shape. That, I think, would be a really great use for this. I really think that is some untapped potential. I don't know if we'll get around to that. Yeah, I don't know. There's so many. I keep coming up with more and more ideas of ways that we can make these things. So I don't know. At the end of it, my wife took, I think she took 16 strands and she's made one kind of thick kumi for just a teeny bit and then split it into two. So that's what makes up the string that this thing, hangs by. So yeah, I think that's a really kind of a cool effect. I like it better than the bow was before. So I imagine this is the direction we're going to go with more of these. So sadly, this is up a bit high and you can't see that black strand. What I did was it goes red, green, red, green, red, green, red, green. I took a black strand and hooked it around the second green one and clipped it up to the top. So that way the piece that was going sideways had something to kind of hold as I'm bringing the stuff down. So that worked out really, really well. I think I have a better clip of doing this for that further on down, but you can see that I didn't like once I had the for the halfway point or whatever, I worked to do the W shape or whatever to one side first and then went back to the middle to work on it. I think that kind of makes a lot of sense because trying to keep track of where you are on the pattern itself is hard enough as it is. So at least having that big knot and only working one side sort of like answers the question where you are and what's going on, because there's two different basic patterns, right? There's the one that will come down and then allows for it to go to the left, and then there's it coming down and then it goes, I guess, to the right. I guess. Yeah. It's super confusing. Like I had to keep rotating the pattern to try to see what was going on at any given point in this thing. And it can be confusing. You just have to remember that it never comes back towards a direction that you've already done. It's always down and then over and then down. Yeah. But yeah, there's two distinct patterns. If you remember when we were coloring in the pattern, right? We did three and then we flipped it to do the other three. So that's the two different ones that are going on. You just have to kind of keep track of it. Otherwise, you will create like a box to it. If you wanted to play with something like that, you could potentially go and make four sides and make it come back to the beginning. So now you'd have a square. If you made six of those and stitched them together, you would have a very interesting cube. Mind you, I think there's a better way that we're going to actually try something of that effect later on. That'll be even cooler. Like it will actually make way more sense. And yeah. So what else can I tell you? The pattern overall is pretty good. There is some strands are used a lot more than others. And like I said, in the second part, I started changing directions to try to keep the short ones from getting used up. But these really long rows, it's like yeah, I changed its direction, but then it wanted to go into the next long row and stuff. So it got a little bit weird in trying to not run out of string. Maybe I didn't have it balanced exactly in the middle when I started it because, like I said, the first half seemed to be fine. I didn't have to change anything. It was the second half I did. The other thing in this pattern that is sort of a plus, I guess, is that green row that came all the way down. So within the shape, the green doesn't come to the edge. And then the candy stripes that we added to the middle kind of actually work in our favor. Because you have a solid red, then you have a solid green, a solid red, a solid green, a solid red, and it goes into the pattern. You know that there's just the two greens that do the thing. Oh, there you can see the black string, how I have it attached into the second one down. and it just kind of holds it out there where you can't really have a clip. So that works out really, really well. Um, but yeah, you only get two full green stripes. So that, because the pattern is just repeating colors and it's always just those two colors, it's kind of harder to know where you are in the pattern. Um, but because it's very countable, there's just the two greens. When you start to go into the third one, you know you don't go all the way to the end. Really, really is a great sort of a payoff. So yeah. So yeah, this is, I think, our third segment into this. And you can see that now this time it's going to let it go off towards the right, which again, it's the whole thing. It really, like, as I was looking at the pattern, like I said, I had to keep flipping it, and it didn't matter. I didn't have to know exactly where I was in the pattern because each segment is the same. I just had to find one that was going in the direction that I was going to go into. And that's all I needed. Once I figured out, like, okay, so this is going to go this way, find a part in there, look at it, go about my business. Um, so yeah, that works out really, really well. So hopefully that'll work well for you as well. Um, you can see that there is a very strategic way that I go about doing the segment knotting in this. Hopefully that will help you guys along as well, because yeah, it does work out. It made it easier. It made me able to see where I was in the pattern at any given point, and make nice long rows and make sense of all of this. So that, hopefully that helps you as well. Yeah. Oh, if the strings were somehow longer, potentially, if we added in one more on either side, I think you would get one extra of these things throughout the whole thing, which would make it a little bit more boxy. Okay, here you go. This is me undoing the middle knot. And of course, I have to remember which direction does it go. It's the left-hand side has to come out. And yeah, so you can see I'm really trying to sort out the strings, which ones were already done, get the half over here, get it sorted. The knot left him a little bit wavy, so it was a little bit weird at first. And then it was also in a spot of the pattern, which I wasn't used to seeing after having done all the other parts. So like I said, I didn't record everything. I just have pieces here. So yeah, I thought this would be kind of useful for you to see the whole undoing the middle thing. Again, it beats the heck out of starting at one end and then coming all the way down and then having to add a lot of string. And because otherwise the lengths of these things would have been huge. Because again, I cut my strings into thirds. That's like a meter and a half long if you right from the middle, a meter and a half. So it'd be 3 meters if you started at one of the end, which is super long. That's like, well, a meter is kind of like a yard, give or take. I don't know which one's bigger, but it's a long, it's really, really long. Like I'm 6'4". I am not quite 2 meters long. So it would be super long strings. There you go. Yeah. So getting it back on track, getting the corner at the end here, that was kind of a thing. Um, I think I think this isn't super hard, but again, any ornament is still going to be at least intermediate. At least. I can't stress this enough. There is a lot of work involved in one of these things. Um, it's kind of oddly shaped because I didn't soak it in water and try to shape it and then let it harden to the shape. Oh, there it is. That's the whole thing. That's the whole W thing or whatever. And then this is where we put it together, and it's, you see I have it inside out, right? Like this is the front, bring it in, and that's where it gets knotted together, right? So here it is now, all now nice and knotted, and you can see it's kind of backwards, right? But that's easy to fix. All you got to do, flip it around, which obviously I made that look very difficult, but there it is. Again, if you put 3 of those corners together, like you're going to see, I'm going to stitch this up. I would probably do it to the other one, the one that's actually got the strings coming off of it. But if you do that, that's how I was saying that you could put 2 of these together and end up with something completely new and different. Also, I discovered this was kind of wrong, and you'll see in a moment that I figured that out and changed it. So I came in from the outside going in and realized, no, I should go from the inside going out, comes around. So that way, when I tie it off, it ends up on the inside is all. So you'll see like there's a little bit of a hesitation, and then I pull it through the one thing. And that's why, because if both strings are on the inside, when you tie it up, those little loose ends will be inside of it. So yeah, here's where I'm kind of like, wait a minute. If I pull these 2 together, it's going to be on the outside, and it'll be a little tiny knot, and it's going to look crummy. And so yeah, I kind of pull, well, no, I'm still calculating at this point. But yeah, it dawns on me, do it the other way around, make it so that way the first is going outwards and the last is going inwards. And yeah, that turns out pretty cool. Barely see the stitches or anything in there. Could have camouflaged it out by using the scraps afterwards, but I actually stitched it together before all of that. So yeah, kind of live and learn. That would have possibly made more sense. So here, I just tie it in I guess it's a square knot or something, reef knot, whatever. Tie it up so that way that becomes, a solid point on it. And then I tied up the other side. And like I said, Mandy then went and added the whole kumis to it. And yeah, that definitely took it up a whole notch right there. Like that made it pretty amazing. I think that's really about it, guys. I think that's it. It turns out really cool. I think that, I mean, yeah, it's kind of small. Like if you compare it to like the palm of my hand, it is a relatively small ornament. So is the first one. These were like more or less prototypes, trying to see whether or not these things were possible. Turns out, yeah, totally is. Again, not 100% sure how big we can scale this up without having to add strings to it or do something else to kind of make that happen, especially for this. The other one, yeah, the first one could definitely go thicker and whatever. This one here, it really uses a lot of strings. So hopefully this guys helps you guys out. Hopefully you guys are inspired. Be sure to tag me if you make one. I would love to see it. Thank you to my Patreon and my YouTube supporters for making these tutorials possible. I couldn't do it without you guys. And as always, don't get your strings in a bunch.